guys, welcome back to my channel and thanks so much for clicking on today's video. So as you can tell by the title, today's video is basically going to be a breakdown of the different types of tools that you can use to apply foundation. I realized that on this channel I do just go ahead and apply my foundation. Sometimes I do it off camera, especially if I'm going to be doing just an eye look, and that's going to be the main focus of the video, and I don't really explain to you why I've chosen a specific tool or why you should choose this tool over that tool. So I thought that I would sit down and film a short video basically explaining the different types of brushes that you can use to apply foundation and do a live demo. So I am going to go through some brushes and also explain how you can use them to get different finishes. I know that not everybody wants, a super sheer look, not everybody wants a high coverage look, so this will kind of break it down and hopefully help you when you're out there buying tools to be able to choose what you want for your kit. So I'm going to be breaking down 3 different brushes and a beauty sponge. All of what I'm going to show you is available on Cocoon Beauty. So if you are interested, then I'll make sure to leave the Instagram handle down below. Go ahead over there and you can place your order. I have done a video before focusing on different brush sets and kind of what was included, but that was quite a long video and it kind of showed you the different sets. But I thought I would just sit down and do a specific one on foundation, because sometimes you don't want to know about blah 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 and you're only interested in one specific tool. And I think foundation is one of those things that people struggle with in terms of what brush should I buy, where can I get it from, and also because a lot of beauty shops, I think in Kenya, only sell things in sets. So we have introduced single brushes over on Cocoon Beauty, so now you can buy just one brush if that's what you want to add to your kit or to try out or to see how to make it work. So I think this helps people who are beginners and don't know which brushes they want and how they should use them, and you don't want to commit to a full set. But also for those of you who do have sets but you want to start adding on individual brushes onto your kit as well, I think this will be useful for you. So before I get started on the video, of course I can't go before I let you know that you need to hit the subscribe button. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. Thank you so much to all of my new subscribers. I see you and thank you for showing me the love. And of course, don't forget to also go ahead and follow me over on Instagram. I am the same name over there just to keep up with me and my daily tidbits. Yeah, so let's just get started. Okay, so I'm going to start going through the tools from sheerest coverage to most intense coverage, but I'm going to do the brushes first and then I'll do the sponge right at the end, because the sponge is kind of a different kind of a tool. So we're going to start off with stippling brushes, and stippling brushes basically look like this. They look a little bit strange, a little bit different from other brushes, and that's because of the way that they are cut. The brush hairs are not all a uniform length. They are actually slightly different lengths typically, and it's quite loosely packed, so the brush actually moves quite a lot. It has a lot of movement in it. What that does is that means that it applies your product that you apply on your face a little bit sheerer. These are recommended basically for, I would say, a light to medium coverage if you're using it for foundation, but they're also recommended for things like cream products and powder products, but again also for a sheared out more light coverage. When you're picking out a stipple brush, I mean, at least personally for me, this kind of one is my favorite because it's not too tall, it's not too short, and it's also not too wide and spread out. And I want to show you what I mean because I've got a couple here to show you. So this one that I've got here is from e.l.f. and you can see already just by the head how much more spread out this one is than this one. So that means that it moves quite a lot, like too much in my opinion. When I apply foundation with a brush that's this spread out, I feel like I get streaks and it's not as flawless as I would like. So I would just recommend, if you are looking out for a stipple brush, get one that isn't so spread out. And then I also have one like this that I got from a brush set about 2-3 years ago from Killimore, and it's got quite a big and long head. This is a little bit too tall for me. Again, it does the same thing because there's just, I think, too much movement in a product like this, then your foundation ends up being just a little bit streaky. I tried it with a couple of different foundations, I just haven't enjoyed using it. So it's just one that I have kind of in my kit, but I don't think I enjoy using that. So this one is perfect, middle of the road, not too tall, not too short, not too spread out so that it's not doing too much. So this one is great, and I'm going to show you how I use this towards the end of the video. Okay, moving on now to solid medium coverage, buildable coverage tool is a flat top kabuki brush. And flat top kabuki brush is basically exactly what it says. It is a flat top brush. It has a completely flat head. It's like you've just chopped off the top. This kind of a brush is fantastic because in my opinion, it's the one that does the most multitasking. So it can do liquid products, it can do cream products really well, it can do, what do I want to say? It can do powder products really well as well. And I use this basically for all of those different types of application. And I have a number of these different brushes. Again, I want to show you how this compares to a few others that I have. So I have this one from Wet n Wild that you guys will have seen, which is actually probably the most similar to this one, but this one's just slightly more spread out. So this one gives me a slightly more sheer coverage than this one, but ever so slightly, not a big difference. But that kind of extra spread in the hairs actually has an impact. And then also I have this one from AOA Studio, part of a brush set that you guys know I rave about. I really like this one because it's a little bit taller and it is a little bit more spread out, but it has a lot more hairs in it. It's a lot more dense. So it does kind of like the same finish as a brush like this would do. And then I have this one that I got from a store in the UK that also has a similar feel to this one. So I use this, as I said, for foundations, but if I'm doing like a no makeup day, then I also use this to apply powder because it gives me a nice medium coverage. It's not too much and not too light. Okay, the final brush that I want to show you for now, high coverage application of foundation, is a dome topped kabuki brush. So it's the same as the other one, except it's got a round head. So it's been cut in a round formation. Let me just show you the two next to each other. You can see this is the flat one and this is the domed head. The domed head will give you the most coverage out of them all. I think it's just because of that round surface area. It kind of catches all the curves and the contours of your face and make sure to distribute product on there. Again, I want to compare this one to a few other ones that I have on hand. So I've got this one from Morphe, which has a slightly bigger head which has a slightly bigger head but feels kind of the same in application. But sometimes you don't want a brush head that's this big, especially if you're trying to get into places like, say, between your eyebrows or under your eyes here or around your nose, where you kind of need a little bit more precision. A slightly smaller head will take you a long way. Just to compare that to this brush, this is the e.l.f. Foundation Selfie Blurring Brush. That's also available in Cocoon Beauty, but you can see, let me just put that one down. You can see that these are kind of similar in size. This one is a little bit more tapered. It's not as round as this one. It has a little bit more of a point to it. So that gives you also a slightly different finish, but they're about the same size in terms of head shape. So I really like that one to work around my face. You can also get domed brushes like this that have angles on them and they are cut to the side, like this other one from Morphe. But I like those kinds of brushes for like blending out contour. Alright, so the final tool that I have to show you to apply foundation is a beauty sponge that looks like this. Is the classic beauty blender teardrop shape that most sponges come in. It has a point at the top and a round kind of bottom on the end. This is kind of like your standard tool or standard brush that you will have if you're looking for a sponge. I've wet this one so it's grown and it's bigger. By the way, if you buy a sponge and you wet it and it doesn't grow, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So make sure you're buying one that has these kind of properties that can grow, because then it becomes a lot softer and easier to work with on your face. Depending on the sponge manufacturer, the squishiness of the sponge will change and the kind of aeratedness of the sponge will change. By that I mean how much air goes into the sponge when you squeeze it. This one I think is kind of nice and middle of the road. I have one by Real Techniques, which for me has too much air going through it, so I find that it shears out my product way too much. And then there are some that are a little bit thicker. I have a Morphe one which isn't as squishy as this one, and that one it gives you more high coverage. So in the same way that the brushes have more movement in their hairs, the sponge material itself is important for getting the texture and the finish that you want. A sponge will give you typically, I think, a medium coverage. A you can use a sponge alone, or you can use it to shear out foundation if you think it's a little bit too thick or a little bit too heavy. This will absorb some of your product, so it helps to kind of give you a lovely smooth airbrushed finish. And sometimes when I go in with a foundation and I think it looks a little bit too cakey, I will always go in with a sponge after it just to smooth out, and I find that it brings everything kind of together. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and demonstrate how to use these tools on your face and what kind of finish you get with them. I'm going to use what I would classify as a medium to buildable foundations. You can get full coverage with these foundations if you want. So on the kind of drugstore end, Maybelline Fit Me is a great one. This one is just about to finish, so I won't be using that, but I just wanted to mention it as an alternative to the MAC Studio Fix Fluid. I think these two have the same kind of consistency and a very similar finish. So I just wanted to show you these two as alternatives so that you could have that as a reference point. Okay, so because I've got 4 tools, I'm going to do half and half of each one. So I'm going to start off with the stippling brush on one side and the sponge on the other. I'm not applying any primer on my face, so I'm just kind of going in with it as it is. And I've just put a little bit of foundation on the back of my hand there, and I'm going in with this stippling brush. So I'm just starting to dab this onto my face. And with a stippling brush, you want to use this kind of motion, which is basically a bouncing motion. I find if you go in and start doing this, swirls, you might start to get streaks. So just do as I am doing and tap, 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 tap the product in. So I hope it's showing up on camera because I can see it in my mirror here, but you can still see some of the dark marks that I have on my cheek and a little bit on my forehead. That kind of gives you an idea of the coverage that you can get with kind of one application of this. If I wanted, I could go in again and try and build it up, but I just wanted to give you a very realistic view of what it looks like applied with that. Switching over to the other side, I'm just adding a little bit more foundation onto the back of my hand, and I'm going to go in with the sponge. So I've just picked up some product there on the side, and again I'm just dabbing this onto my face. And similarly, again, you want to bounce and pat this product into the skin. You don't want to wipe, because then you'll basically wipe the product off. So just tapping, bouncing motions is what you want. I've tried to put the same amount of product onto the back of my hand. I don't have a pump, so it's not like 100% accurate, but I think I've been fairly fair in terms of how I've applied that. And this is what they look like side by side. Looking in the mirror, I think they've kind of done a very similar type of finish. It's lightweight, it's not too much. I've gotten some level of coverage, but maybe not what I would need in terms of covering up my dark marks and things. But I think if you've got clear skin and you haven't got any issues and you don't want to feel like you've got too much product on, then one of these would be fantastic for you. So either the stippling brush or the sponge. Okay, so I have cleaned off my face and now I am back to try out the other brushes. So I'm going to go in first of all with the flat top kabuki brush, again with some product on the back of my hand, and I'm going to do that on this side. So with the flat top kabuki, you can get away with doing kind of dragging motions, just because of the way that the brush is packed. It's a little bit more heavy. So you can get away with doing that without having streaks. And I'm hoping you can see already that the level of coverage that I'm getting is a lot more than what I had with the stippling brush or with the sponge. A great tip, by the way, if you do want to like target a specific area that has an issue, is to first dab and then kind of sweep out towards the edges. I find that that gives you the level of coverage that you might want, that you've missed with a foundation that might be a little bit too light or otherwise. Okay, so that is the coverage on that side, and I know you can see that that has covered up so much more in terms of my black marks and kind of evening out my skin tone as opposed to the other one. So this is the flat top kabuki brush side. And then finally, I want to go in and do the dome-topped brush. So I'm just grabbing that and picking up the product and applying it straight onto my face. So again, with this one, you can get away with doing circular motions. The brush really likes to move in that kind of buffing way because of the round top. Again, you can also do dabbing and then go in and buff. All right, so that is the round top side. So this is what that looks like. And that's how it compares to the flat top. If you are seeing a little bit of darker marks on this side, that is because I've got like really stubborn marks on this side as compared to this side of my face, and it's more bumpy and textured on this side. So don't let that distract you. But I feel as though they've given me quite a similar level of coverage, but just looking in my mirror here, I feel as though I've gotten slightly more coverage with the round top, just a hair more. I mean, it's not like something too distinguishable. So I guess it would just depend up to preference whether you like to go for a round top or a flat top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rest of my face, and then I'll be back to round up the video and give you some more information about how you can get these brushes. Okay, so I have finished off doing my rest of my makeup, and by the way, I applied my bronzer with the stippling brush, and I really like how it's come out. It kind of gave me that really nice soft look. So if you haven't got like a dedicated bronzer brush at the moment, then this one could possibly multitask for you. I found it really good. So I think I have a place for all three of these brushes and the sponge in my collection. As you've seen, I already own different variations of these brushes already, and I liked what they did. And of course, you guys know that I love a sponge for applying both foundation, but especially for blending out my concealer under my eyes, which is what I use that for today. So all of these brushes are available for 400 shillings from Cocoon Beauty, so 400 shillings each. And they each have a counterpart, so a slightly smaller brush that's basically exactly the same as these, and those go for 200 shillings. Those smaller brushes I would recommend to use for concealer. For example, the dome-topped one is exactly like the brush that I use to blend out my concealer. I love this brush. This one's from Morphe, but it's basically exactly the same thing, and I use that to blend out my concealer. The flat top little one can be used for blending out concealer as well, or for blending out liquid lipstick. If you don't want to get your fingers messed up or you haven't got the whole lip smacking thing down, that's fantastic. And the little stippling brush is also great as well for lipstick. So they come in this size for 400 and the smaller size for 200, and the sponges retail for 250 shillings. Now these always sell out within a flash, so if you are interested in one, then make sure you grab that, but they will be continuous restocks, of course. And if you guys like these brushes, I only brought a few units just to see how just to see if you would be interested, whether it's something that you would like me to continue. So if you do like them, then give me some feedback, and then we will start stocking these in larger quantities. Yeah guys, all right, so that brings me to the end of the video. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I hope that you found this video useful. If you did, leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up. You can also share it with friends if you think that they would find it useful as well. And of course, please, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.